Good evening and welcome to the Hamilton Report. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, and I'm really happy that you tuned in to join us this evening on what amounts to a very cold, dreary night in Oklahoma. I hope that you are somewhere safe and warm and that you'll be able to stay there because it's not going to be good this week in terms of weather. So do take care of yourself in every aspect. I mentioned last week that we will be talking tonight with Emily Virgin, the leader of the House caucus, and they were going to unveil their legislative agenda today. But because of the weather, they had to postpone their press conference. So do be looking out for a special edition of this broadcast later this week. So as soon as they have their press conference that evening, Leader Virgin will be joining me here so that we can take a deeper dive into what the caucus has really put together to be a very sound pillar of legislation in several areas that are important to all of us. So we'll keep you posted on that. You can find details at okdemocrats.org. We will update you as we know more. But this is Black History Month, and I can think of no better time to welcome our guest this evening. He is someone that I've had the pleasure of working with in a number of instances. We have shared podiums many times. We have shared lecterns. We have marched together. We have stood for each other's press conferences. And it's always a pleasure to talk to him because I always learn something. And tonight, I think that we will all learn something as we welcome to the Hamilton Report the president of the Oklahoma City NAACP, Garland Pruitt. Garland, welcome to tonight's broadcast, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. We have to do this more often.
And we will. I promise. Before we get too far along, I want to offer condolences of the party for the passing of Maxine Horner, who was a pioneer, a true leader, not only as a legislator, but she also championed the survivors of the Wall Street massacre. And she passed yesterday after a long life of service, not just to Black Oklahomans, but to Oklahomans. And so we remember her and we offer our condolences to her family, to her friends from 1933 to 2021, Representative Maxine Horner. So like I said, this is Black History Month. And before we look at the future, I want to spend a few minutes talking about the past, Garland. This is the centennial of the race massacre in Tulsa. And, you know, I'm bringing that up for a number of reasons, besides it being the 100th year. I went to school in Oklahoma City from kindergarten through 12th grade. Went to OU, graduated from there, and it wasn't until I was in my 40s before I ever learned about what they were calling then the Tulsa race riots, but it truly was a massacre of Black Wall Street. It was not mentioned anywhere in textbooks. It was nowhere to be heard in classrooms, and I find that deeply, deeply disturbing. Have we made progress in terms of what we're teaching our children, Garland?
I think it's an ongoing process. And what I mean by that is just as you were not informed, enlightened, and made aware of those particulars, we have to generate some of that history because the system has a tendency to cover it up, to bury it, and to not expose it. Matter of fact, one of the things that's taking place now and been taking place the last few years is they're rewriting history and not telling the truth about the history. And so when we see like what we're looking at now, what you're showing now, as far as the bombing, the Gap band say they dropped a bomb on me, that is real. I mean, so some folks have a tendency to not look at reality when it comes to the amount of destruction, the amount of desolation, the amount of racism that takes place on a regular, ongoing, daily basis. The Tulsa massacre is just another prime example of the severity in which folks will go to have their way, or to be racist, or to be discriminatory, or to practice or try to maintain the power influence that they might have. That same attitude is the same attitude that took place at the Capitol on the 6th.
Thank
That's
you.
the type of attitude, that's the type of behavior, that's the type of procedure that are going on now when they want to deny it, they want to reject it, they don't want to see it for what it's worth. Now, just like we're having dialogue, you ask the question now, at least 5 folks died. Who's being charged with murder or death at this particular time? Right now, we can't even get the proper charges even taking place, less known the proper justice that might need to take place. This is what we deal with daily, daily, daily. Just another day in the neighborhood. So we as concerned citizens, we as informed people or enlightened people have to continue the drum, be that drum major for justice, the drum major for righteousness, the drum major for fair and equal treatment. Because when we don't, it gets worse. And right now we're on the path to work unless we grab it, take hold to it, and take care of that power that we have. The Democratic Party at this particular point, the House, the Senate, and the presidency has that power. It's left up to us to put our influence or our suggestions on utilizing it to its fullest extent. Others have done it, abused it, misused it. We want to do it. And like Lewis say, we want to make good trouble. And good trouble addressing those issues that impact our lives every single day. And when we do that,
it is that good trouble.
We've been doing what the party should stand for and ought to stand for and has stood for. And so that's the vein we want to lean in, live in, and promote, support, and endorse.
You were talking about the 6th and the way that already history is being rewritten a month and a couple of days later, because now all of a sudden people are touting it as something very, very different. And I am so tired, and you must be incredibly weary and angry about the whataboutisms. Well, what about the riots? We didn't have riots last summer. We had demonstrations. We had marches. So how do we begin to really address all of those whataboutisms, Garland?
Okay, well, I think it has everything to do with some of the things I tell my people and the young people I come in contact with that are active, engaged, and involved. When we get through rallying, when we get through marching, when we get through demonstrating, when we get through protesting, we got to have legislative change. Until we can get some changes in the policies and in the laws, we've not accomplished or achieved our goal. Because even once you get them, we got to hold them accountable to making the right choices and doing the right things, even after policies are on the books, because they will still abuse it, misuse it, and take advantage of it. So the whole key to it is continue to hold the feet to the fire, continue to address the issues and concerns, continue to stand up, speak up, and demand something different from what we see and experience every single day. That's the challenge.
It is a challenge. It's a huge challenge, but it's one I've had the honor of hearing you address, particularly with young people. And there are so many distractions in our society today. It's easy for anyone to become distracted. But I have seen you talk to young people about the importance not just of getting involved, but staying involved. Beyond encouraging them to do that, tell me more. Tell me how we all collectively can keep our young people engaged in this process to create systemic change.
I think it has everything to do with, we just got through acknowledging a warrior, Maxine Horner, that is passed, that was seasoned, that was engaged year after year after year after year. I went to a convention a few years ago, and the late Benjamin Hooks made the statement for all of you young people and naysayers that says, how come this ain't done? And why ain't this ain't done? And how come you ain't fixed this? And how come you ain't corrected that? The message he left was, this is what you want to tell your young people. It's my turn now. It's my turn now. It's my turn now. In other words, get involved for fixing, changing, and correcting those situations. For every area of concern that you have, that you know is not what it could be, should be, and ought to be, address it. If you can't, go seek help to make it happen. Go get others to make it happen. We believe in the young people getting involved, staying involved, and participating because they have that energy. Us seasoned folk got energy also, but beyond having energy, we got to be able to pass policies and make laws and hold folks accountable. That's our task. That's our challenge. And that's kind of like right now. Carry on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Right now, we're in the process of trying to correct some of these things that we know that is happening, been happening. The police killing. They killed, I think, 1,012, something like that last year. Died at the hands of police officers. They're averaging 1,000 a year. 2020 ain't been what? Less than 2 months ago. They killed over 1,000 folks. Not anti-police. We anti-killing in the street without a weapon. We're anti. I just saw on the news a few minutes ago, an elderly woman, black woman, they done broke her arm for whatever reason in the arrest. De-escalation can happen, should happen. They train for that. And the first thing everybody gonna say, they need more training. Who don't know that you ain't supposed to go in somewhere and break some old woman's arm? Ain't no amount of training in the world gonna stop you from doing some of the things that we see, know, and experience on a regular basis. It's called some decency, respect for humans, somebody that don't look like you, don't live like you, don't act like you. You got to respect folks for who they are. And so our police department has to learn that at this particular point. Like I say, they got a few task force. I happen to have been put on them. And so my concern right now, we actually got a meeting tomorrow on Tuesday and another one on Thursday. If you got the title and the position, you hold the office, who do we have to go through to fix, change, and correct some of these situations that we know can be corrected? All of these organizations, all of these individuals, we come together trying to make things better for all of us. And we do that not by talking at each other, but talking to each other in order to address the issues and concerns. Life is always going to continue. And so we got to stay in that vein, trying to fix, change, and correct, and be open to somebody's suggestion other than my own.
Well, this is not Sunday morning, it's Monday night, but you're still taking us to church nonetheless. And I appreciate that because what you're saying could not be more timely. One of the things that I have long admired about the NAACP is that you welcome all people who are willing to work together for positive change. And let's talk about that. Where do we break down barriers? Because every organization that's doing good wants to do good. But at the same time, if we don't create some bridges across those boundaries, we're going to keep working in little silos. How do we start to work collaboratively as groups, Garland?
We have to come together on every area of issues. In other words, just an example, when we start talking about polluting our water, polluting our air, all of us going to drink that dirty water and breathe that dirty air. When it comes to education, when our educational it's totally not what it should be, could be, and ought to be. Now, I'm even concerned about even my party and everybody else talking about putting these kids back in school without the teachers being mandatory that they take the test and take the shot. I mean, if the kids can contaminate me and I can contaminate the kids, I know that's one of those issues that's being fought at the what you call the union level. I support the union. I draw a union salary retiree. So we got some challenges ahead of us, but it's called common decency. If I have a decent job, I can pay my taxes, and there's enough wealth out there for all of us. When we look at the pandemic right now, which is a major, how I can get in office as a president and pass policies and bills that give up $1 trillion to a 1%, but now I can't give up $1 trillion to satisfy the entire nation. The hypocrisy. The just unreal position in which some takes. And so we got to say no, not now, but hell no on some of the things that they stand firm and hold to that does not benefit the American people, does not even benefit them. It's just that cocky, arrogant bigotry of superiority in some level has to be tore down, broke down. But I just praise and thank that we end up taking the House, the Senate, and the presidency because folks, enough of them stood up against the racist barriers that we see on a regular basis, even beyond the voter suppression that took place, even beyond taking out the sorting machines inside the post offices. Enough rose up, stood up, and said enough is enough. So now that they have done that, Let's give the people, we the people, what we deserve, what we need, and what we desire. We can be that utopia on top of the hill when we do the right thing and take care of all of us versus a handful that has self-interest involved and only. That's that's how we come together. Raising minimum wage. Now it's amazing. What was it? Oklahoma just less than a year or so ago decided to take the Medicare expansion money after all the rural hospitals then closed and folks can't get their medicine. And we finally came around, what, 12 years, almost 12 years later, pay my tax dollars for somebody else to get the health care they need. And we so bigot, so cocky, so arrogant on the wrong side of right, just, and fair that we say, take my money over there and fix them and let my people here die and not have health care and not have hospitalization. We got to be smarter than that. And we be smarter than that by continuing to call it out, expose it, talk about it, discuss it. I mean, we have to. If we don't, they won't.
You're exactly right. And I want to underscore something that you said a moment ago. You were talking about drinking water and cleaning and the air that we breathe. Right now, issues of climate are also issues of racial justice, because when we look at Flint, for example, who lives in Flint, Michigan? Who are the people that suffered the most at the hands of someone who was just being greedy? So climate change, taking care of our planet, is an issue of racial justice. What you're talking about, voter suppression, that is absolutely a matter of social justice. And everything you're talking about, if we can get out of the way, if we can lay down our own bigotry for a minute, then I think we might see that social justice is not just some kind of a buzzword, but it's something that everyone in this country deserves. True justice.
I agree. And one of the things they always say, all politics is local. Right now here in Oklahoma, we're contaminating the aquifers and everything else. Right here in Oklahoma, most recently, they've slowed down with the fracking, but they was fracking all over the place, tearing up people's houses, foundations all over the entire state, and knew it. And we still ain't got, and if you couldn't pinpoint those particular areas concerning them, if you can't say it was this particular well that caused it, we ain't gonna do nothing. Didn't do nothing to none of them, no way, but this was that old weak excuse they use. The same tearing up our foundation, everything else. Solar right now. Solar is the ingoing and coming thing that's going to take place in Oklahoma. They're going to find me if I put solar on my church, on my business, in my home, versus allow us to go with the newest technology moving forward. Matter of fact, the new president made mention that in a very few years, he's going to actually put money in the, what do you call it? In cars, where the electric cars versus the engines that we have now. That is the future. We got to get on board with things that are progressive and moving forward and beneficial to all of us. Talking about we are in all state. We know where we at, but we got to start the transition to move progressively toward the future. And because when we don't, we're going to be behind. All these things that we're talking about are beneficial to all of us.
Exactly. You could not be more right. This is about taking care of each other. It's about taking care of our children and our grandchildren. And when I hear people like you just mentioned about being taxed for taking advantage of the sun or the wind, that's not good stewardship of our planet. It's not looking out for our neighbors. You know, this state is, I've heard it called everything from the belt of the buckle of the Bible Belt to the most religious place in the country. Well, you know what? For having said all that, we sure do not do a very good job of looking after each other, do we?
No, we don't. And the only way we're going to do better is to continue to attempt to try to hold each other accountable, especially for those areas that we're really, really, truly concerned about. When everybody want to run to the Bible, they say you want to treat people like you want to be treated. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing what whatever religion or your God would have you to be doing. Treat folks like you want to be treated. Just we are into the pandemic, so we're not able to have church. But at my church, they're trying to do it twice a month, first and the third. And they made mention on yesterday, Isaiah 43, 18 and 19, saying we got to do a new thing. And the new thing is inclusion. The new thing is fixing some of this old jacked up, screwed up, messed up stuff that we come in contact with every day. The new thing is let's love somebody. The new thing is let's pass some policies and some laws that has some inclusion of making life better for all of us. When we do that, then we'll be fulfilling our mission as decent human beings or so-called Christians or whatever belief you might have. That's saying, I'm going to think about somebody other than self. I'm going to try to make life better for somebody other than self. And I'm going to be a helpmate versus somebody that's bringing folks down, putting folks down. We want to lift somebody's spirit, lift somebody's heart, give them some hope and give them some direction and do some things that's positive, uplifting, and the way we want to be living. Something we can inspire our kids. Our kids see the things that we're going through right now. What was it? Less than 2 months ago, they ended up the police officers that killed Tamara Rice, a 12-year-old boy. I got a 12-year-old grandson. They acquitted him, said, it's okay. In other words, just another day in the neighborhood. These are the kind of things that we cannot tolerate, put up with, and accept with a smile on our face. We got to confront it. We got to address it. We got to let it be known that we will not accept it. We will not go along with it. And something has to happen to fix, change, and correct it. Some laws, that newness. The new word is we need some newness. Some newness to fix some of the things that we're confronted with. And when we start thinking like that, we're thinking on the right vein and in the right direction.
We absolutely are. You're actually tonight, you're talking to people, not just here in Oklahoma. Some of the comments that have been put on our screen tonight are from people in New York and Texas, people around the country paying attention to what we're talking about here. And that gives me hope that we can really start to talk and engage with other people, because right now some states are doing it right when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. Some states are doing it very poorly. Oklahoma is among those. Let's talk for a moment, if you would, about how right now in the state of Oklahoma, percentage-wise, far fewer Black folks are getting immunized against COVID than everyone else. How can that be? Why are we putting up with a situation like that right now? We have had some very bad experiences concerning the system, but I just heard over the weekend from a comedian concerning this pandemic. And the comment he made was, if you got people lining up to get this vaccine, if you got white folks lining up, old folks lining up to get this vaccine, then we as a Black person, we might want to go get some of that. It might be something to that. So my word is, I've already had one of the shots. Matter of fact, I'm going to take the other shot this week. The other comment was talking about, well, we don't know what's in it, and we don't know the side effects, and we don't know how we're going to respond to it. You don't know what's in aspirin. You don't know what's in Tylenol. You better get you some. That's my message. That's a powerful
if they're
one.
talking about something going to make better the possibilities of me living, I want some of them possibilities. We understand the conspiracy theory. We can't live in conspiracy. We got to deal with facts. We better listen to the medical doctors versus somebody that done told you it's going to go away in a few days. Now we got almost 500,000 dead behind it. It's going to go away in a few days. They still supporting this clown talking about go shoot up with Clorox and disinfectant. This the sickness that we have out here in our society where they would tolerate, put up and go wrong with it. That's that same sickness that was on the 6th of January that went up in there and then killed all them folk behind filing silly, wild and crazy ideas, silly folks on conspiracy. We got to be, like I say, science-based. We got to believe and listen to the scientists. We got to listen to those with decent respect for somebody's life other than self. When somebody is telling you and promoting things that you truly, truly can benefit from, you can see what your options are as far as this sounds like a good idea. This sounds like SHI is what I call it. So, I mean, that's a reality of where we at as a people. And that's what we got to be about. Trying to encourage our young people. Once we get our young people involved, ain't nothing we can't achieve or master and accomplish. We know that there's always going to be some that are going to stand up, speak up, and demand something different. Those are the ones we got to continue to get to, promote, support, and give them what they need in order to help us accomplish and achieve our goal as decent human being, as a party, and respect for life, the earth, and people in general. I mean, it don't take rocket science to see that they're talking about something you're going to benefit from. Right now, here they right and want to give up our position to the next little $1,400. We can give millionaires and billionaires the 1%. We can get them $1 trillion and they put it in permanently versus temporary, and we can't deal for the masses of people. Come on, where's decency at? Basic common sense.
Some of our Oklahoma, and I'm using this term very, very loosely, representatives in Washington, because clearly they don't represent the people of this state, talking about, oh, well, we can't afford this kind of a, they're calling it a bailout. This is not a bailout. A bailout is what you do for major corporations and banks. This is not a bailout. This is helping people put food on the table to maybe be able to cover one of those bills that's hanging over their heads. And so
ain't nothing we can't afford. Bottom line is those are our tax dollars. If we want to triple it or whatever, it's ours, it's for us, and it needs to be used to help those that are in need at this particular point. I mean, that's a reality. People have, what do you say, done lost their homes, done lost their cars, done lost their jobs, done lost their businesses. We better than that when we act better than that. But when we come up with those weak excuses that we can't do for the masses, but we can do for the 1%, that's a cap out. That's a lie. That's a fraud. And we can't tolerate and put up with that. And our own legislators right here in Oklahoma, one of them jumped up and ran down there with them other 130 something of them going to overturn an election. The sickness, lose in the House, I'm going to say, lose the majority vote, lose the electoral votes, lose in 60 different courtrooms, and you're going to run down there like you got something. We cannot tolerate and put up with that. I mean, I don't care how you lie to yourself. You ain't gonna lie to all of us, and we believe it. So we got to stay positive. We got to stay strong. We got to stay together and say not now, but hell no. Get these folks that little money and get ready to give us some more money because it's ours to begin with. We're going to be the one going to pay for it anyway. Same ones they didn't gave the tax break. Hell, they ain't going to pay it back. We going to pay it back to ourselves.
That's a perfect way to stop the show because you got me all riled up. Now I got to give you credit for holding your tongue. You didn't curse, and I was sitting here just biting my tongue. So listen, what we have done tonight is begun a conversation. By no means have we rounded up and put a bow on this thing. You and I have got to commit to continue to talking on this broadcast or anywhere you invite us to, we'll be there because with people like you in leadership, and I'm going to end the show the way that I began it by appreciating you for your leadership, for the people of Oklahoma City, for the people of Oklahoma, and people around the country can look to you as a real modern day hero. And I appreciate you being with us tonight. Will you promise me you'll come back and see us again soon?
Anytime. Just let me know in advance. I got off a Zoom call to get on this one.
Well, I appreciate you doing it so much. We'll talk real soon, Garland. Thanks again for being with us tonight, sir.
Nope.
Our guest this evening was the president of the Oklahoma City chapter of the NAACP, Garland Pruitt. And I am so grateful, not just that he was able to step in and join us at a late hour, but I'm grateful for what he said because he's inspired me to think about some things that I hadn't before and encouraged all of us to think about some things that honestly it would be easier to perhaps not think about. But that's where change begins, is by thinking about those hard topics, about talking about those things that used to be in polite society we wouldn't talk about. But today it's time to talk about racism. It's time to talk about social inequality. It's time to talk about racial injustice. I'm committing to do that for the rest of my life. And I'm proud to be a part of a party, the Oklahoma Democratic Party, who values people and principles before profit. You'll see that as this year continues with some of the great things that our legislators have in store and some of the great things that our party is working on to create positive, systemic change for Oklahomans today and for years to come. Do keep an eye out for an announcement about a special edition of the Hamilton Report with our special guest leader, Emily Virgin. As soon as we have details, we'll be promoting that on social media, and you can always find out more on our website, which is okdemocrats.org. Until then, I thank you for joining us this evening. I hope that you learned something or took something away that will help you have a conversation with someone else, even when it may not be an easy one to have. So please share this with your friends. Stay warm, stay safe. Until we're able to be together again, know how much I appreciate you being with us. And for all of us at the Hamilton Report and certainly the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton. Good night.